We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 8:30. And John McLaren and Kelly are out of town today, separate, not together, but separate conferences. And just to clarify that. And I apologize, I have a meeting at 9, so I'm going to have to slip out a little early. We're going to move the items that require board action kind of to the front of the meeting and try to get through as much as we can in the next 20 minutes. So our first item is approval of the minutes from the last meeting. So if you've had a chance to look at those, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve minutes. I'll second.
Or do you have any questions or comments about that? Okay, all those in favor of approval? Any opposed? Okay. And next we'll hear the financial update from Cheryl Bartlett.
Y'all should have this on the table. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Basically, we should be at approximately 67% of the budget, and the majority of things that are over that are the income side, so that's a good thing. The things that are over on the expense side are either paralleling that, like we are selling more bricks, so we have more brick engraving expense, and those are offset. Or they're pretty small, like the restroom trailer expense budget was only $500 and we had to replace a generator, so that went up a little bit. I sent out invoices this week for 7 different events, so we should be getting over $1,000. Hopefully, they all did this for that, and it will cover it. I'll be glad to answer any questions on this statement. The other thing that we kind of need to do is put a statement in the record of who the officers are and who can be on the signature. The Citizens First CD and the Regions Bank CD both have people on it, only people on it that are not on the board anymore. So it's kind of difficult.
We need it to do so Gary can do our audit.
Gary has to verify with the bank the balances as of the end of the audit period, and we didn't accept mine and Sherry's signature. Go figure. We're not on it. So we just need to say, they said we had the record of minutes that who the officers are and who you all agree will be on the account.
Okay.
I'm the treasurer. I can be on it as long as y'all promise not to get me in any trouble.
And then John should be on it as well since he's chair, I would think. And would that be acceptable for those two?
Usually Sherry would be too.
Okay,
And
of course.
For just ease of purpose, Cheryl, so that she can have access to the accounts online because they won't give her access.
I have access. I'm on the other accounts, and I, as a practice, do not sign the checks. I let Sherry sign all of them, but it allows me to talk to the bank, which we need to do frequently, so that would be nice.
So do we need to do that in the form of a motion so that it's in the minute? Okay, so I would entertain a motion that Sherry Morgan, Cheryl Bartlett, John McLaren, and Damon Runkle be on the signature cards for any bank account. I'll entertain that as a motion.
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
Okay, any question or discussion? Okay, all in favor of that list of officers? And any opposed? Okay, so that's approved.
I have a quick question for you, and I believe I know the answer. When you say 66% of the budget, you mean 66% of the budget through today?
Through May 31st.
Through May 31st. Okay.
Because it's 8 months out of the 12.
Yeah. So we're still running at a theoretical overage. That's good.
Okay, and the next item that we want to talk about is the proposal that Sherry can tell us about from Noland.
It's in front of you. Noland is a lead generating service, and they've been in business for a while. They're just now starting to branch out into DMOs and CDBs. So what they provide is a huge searchable database. And I've been through a demonstration with them. You can, if you look in the stapled packet before you, it explains better than I could NOLA data by the numbers, you have access to everything. So there's 14.5 million recorded events, over 7,000 hotels, 207 different markets, industry markets, 88,000 verified planner contacts, and then 1.48 million group profiles. So you could, if you wanted to seek out business specifically from agroforestry, and you wanted groups that are only in Texas, and you wanted people that met statewide, you could enter in that Boolean search and do a search and get the names of the people to contact. And also it would provide you with their history. So you could then make a cold call, but say, I see that you had your annual conference at the Hotel Galvez in June of 2017. I'd like to share with you what we in Nacogdoches could do. So it basically is a tool. Right now, the lead generating services that we use it's TextMet and it's through TACVB. So it's also the same pool that everybody else is going for. So we're all kind of going for the same business. Because they're just now, Noland is just now branching out into CVBs and DMOs, not everybody, it's a fresh pool, basically, for the industry. I had them include the one-sheeter that's in your packet of a case study from Ann Arbor, and then just some general information. Yesterday, which there's a package option in pricing as well. Yesterday, he said that he would come down to $1,000 a month, making the total package $12,000, and it is just a year-long commitment. And the value in packaging that they're willing to offer us the month of July for free, gratis.
So $11,000 for a year?
It'd be $12,000 for
13 months?
Well, no, the July is included, but yeah. So I can tell you, also in the staple packet in front of you, you can see how it gathers its data. They have put a time clock on this pricing offer of June 30th, so we've got 10 days to make a decision. This is one of those things that I doubt that we have an overage in our standing budget as it is to cover $12,000. They are willing to work with us billing-wise, but we would have to pay at least some portion in this fiscal year. The rest could come out of next fiscal, but the way I see it, this would be an expense that we would dip into reserves for if it's a direction that you see value in and choose to go. Full transparency, as we're building out our budget for next year, I'm looking at possibly tapping into some reserves so that we can take advantage of volume discounts. So instead of piecemealing our collateral for name tags and just buying 250 at a time, we're trying to look at how many name tags we go through in a fiscal year and buy for that a year's time, or just buying copy paper a box at a time, looking at how much copy paper we use so that we can take advantage. Those aren't going to be significant. We're not able to go buy a new car with the savings, but I think it's a more fiscally responsible way to spend our money. But the way that we receive our money from the city is in parcels, and so we don't get a lump sum, and it makes it harder to finance things. So just so that you know, this might not be an isolated request to go into our reserves. The difference being that with the budgetary, projection of expenses that we're looking for the volume discount pricing, those would be things that we could replace immediately. This is just going to be a $12,000 hit. And then if after a year we don't see a return on the investment, we don't have to continue on. So for me, I like that it is just a one-year contract. I think this is a great time to get into it before everybody else catches in and starts dipping in the same pool. But happy to proceed as the board sees fit. It's not a small investment, but it is an investment of building our meetings market, which is a directive from the marketing plan.
What's your recommendation? Yeah, what's your recommendation?
I would like a money tree. Again, it's one of those things, like it'd be a no-brainer if we just had the money to do it. I hate to dip into the reserves. I had a conversation with Joanna this morning. If this is something that gets approved, then the onus is on her to really deliver on it.
To
And
make it work.
yeah, we're going to have to work it.
Hey, are you familiar with this program at all?
This is brand new. So they've been in business for a long time, but they've not been a part of the industry as such. So, and they are willing to work. If you would like, we could call a special meeting if that's something that you would like, and we could go through a demonstration if you felt like you wanted to see it. It's really them putting in search results in a database and pulling it up. But they're happy to do that as well. I do think it's of value because at this point, we've gone through our historical data of groups that we've brought in. We've utilized TextMet. We sort of have those associations that are going to come in. So we need another source. But it does not escape me that $12,000 is a hefty price tag. I think it's a value considering what other similar packages cost and what the full price of this is.
So we have to commit to a full year.
How much, on our statement of financial position, how much of our assets as far as checking and savings account, how much of that is reserved? I see one account that's labeled reserve, and it's the one at Bancorp, and that's $167,000.
Well, essentially, both of the CDs, Citizens First and Regions Bank, I consider those reserves because they're CDs that are rolling. As a matter of fact, one of them rolls this month.
So that's more than $200,000 in reserves right now.
And then we kind of have this is kind of an odd time, and I'm sorry, I kind of have a couple questions. I'm going to try to package into one or two. So when we made last year's budget, or when y'all made last year's budget, whoever was here, I don't think anyone was here. Okay, when Cheryl was here, y'all made last year's budget. We tried to account for the losses that we were going to sustain by the Fredonia Hotel being open but not generating income necessarily for us. And so we dipped into our reserves at that time to do that. Is that to make our budget work? Is that correct?
The line, 71,000.
Okay.
In the budget. Now, I will say, we have not had to.
That's not, so.
Right now, our checking account is paying bills, and we have not had to tap into that.
So it's possible that where we thought we were going to tap into reserves last year, we're not going to. So meaning that we already thought that we were spending that money, but we haven't spent it. And then when you're making the budget for next year, are you taking that into account and going ahead and, you're not using any reserves for next year like that 71,000?
Not to my knowledge.
So, to your knowledge, if everything continues as it's been going and the impact of the hotel on our hot tax and all of that, then we will be within budget and we won't be dipped into our reserves for this year, theoretically, or next year. So, we have a little play space. Now, if we consider $1,000 a month and what that turns into with meetings and events that you're selling right now, and what that's coming back into our budget as on a monthly basis in hot tax from the hotels that these places that we're selling or that we will sell are. I mean, is that coming back to us as $1,000 a month? I mean, I know that, really we're just trying to meet it because we're not trying to make money, we're trying to produce money for the community. But do we realistically see that what we're generating from the other hotels could equal $1,000 a month?
Eventually, yeah. It's not going to be one of the, because the events that we're pulling in might not be for 3 or 4 years.
But I mean, I guess
It's enough frankness.
what are we on the meetings business right now that we're getting? What are we getting in hot tax on that a month? Do we have any idea?
Pull those numbers.
That's a weird number. I know that's a kind of very specific number.
Why do we think that, or how do you know that the meeting planning information, the events that you'll get from Nolan are different than the events that we get from the one you're currently using.
The historical data.
The TextMed.
Right.
Historical data, and then from TextMed, there's going to be some crossover. I think TextMed is only in Texas; it's only statewide, and Nolan is a national, and so that is, we can search within the state, we can search within the region, we can, target specific different geographic regions that make sense for.
So even just like Louisiana, which might be a very easy market for us.
I mean, even Oklahoma, and if you do your circle, I mean, that's Shreveport.
And y'all haven't, I know since you said we might make this contact now and the meeting may not happen for 3 or 4 years, so we might not see that revenue immediately, but you have in mind some way to document, at least the pitches that you make and the people who seem receptive.
Absolutely.
It should be able to quickly determine our return on investment.
Yeah.
And, the other thing is just we're exploring. I have found that a lot of our historical data is associations, and they were Fredonia clients, which is fine, and those that we have had come back, but what I've lost is kind of the integrity of the block. A lot of them come on their own, and so having a block out there has been difficult to secure because they like going anywhere and everywhere.
Well, and it's a different, our economic impact calculations are all based on spending habits, and this is tapping into markets that spend significantly differently than the associations that we're bringing in. So you're looking at hitting oil and gas at a corporate level for them to have their planning meetings. Well, their spending habits, they're going to be more of the high dollar dinners, drinks. They're going to be spending more in the community. So it's another aspect. It doesn't shift the needle too far, but it is significant enough to account for some differences.
And a lot of those corporations, they're straight up, they have deals with your Holiday Inn and your Hamptons because they have a corporate account with that particular, Choice Hotels or HIE.
And we've got, working in our benefit, a community of partners, true partners that collaborate easily with one another because they do it all the time. So it is feasible for us to bring in a corporate group for a team building and take them to ZipNAC, take them to Napa Valley, take them, host them at the Fredonia. I mean, there's enough to spread around so that the economic impact isn't concentrated just in one area, but that the whole community really benefits from that.
Would we give up any of our other services?
No, because they're part of our membership anyway. I mean, that's already built into our budget, so we'd still continue to use those as well. But again, those are other, they've kind of chosen their niche already of where they like to be in the Grapevine, Colleyville. They like, they found their place that they're going to be.
You had said that they were giving us special pricing of $1,000. What would the regular price have been?
Well, that was what's in your packet was their special pricing, and then at the end of business yesterday, they came back and he said, "Hey, I just drew up the contract and I knocked $100 off."
Okay.
So, but full price, I believe they discounted us 40%. What you see in the packet is a 40% reduction in what they would charge in that second year.
Okay.
How are we, seems like we've taken some risk and that we have not, they haven't come back to bite us yet. So I'm not opposed to, I'm not a big gambler, but I'm not opposed to taking more risk. How are we looking on some of the variable things that we've been concerned about, like the smoke detectors and,
Our phone system, we were looking at, having to double pay that well into the end of this fiscal year, the first, but they just came back 2 weeks ago and said that they're going to install the fiber July 17th. So that has moved forward. So we're going to, we're looking good in that sense as well. So things are sort of correcting and finding their level.
We feel good financially about that stuff we have to invest in, even though we don't want to.
As good as I'm going to feel, I guess. I don't like to spend money, but things aren't free. So.
His old building is difficult.
Yeah.
So I guess at this point, we could entertain a motion if you're willing to, or if anyone
Is willing to gamble on it.
I make the motion.
that would for approval.
Yes. And I'll second it.
Any other questions or discussion?
Do y'all want to just take it out of reserves as a whole, or do you want to see what surplus we have in the budget and only take out of reserves what is needed to make up the difference, or how are you wanting to?
I think let's see if they'll let us pay part of it now and then part of it later in the year, so that perhaps we could even pay it after, they may not do that yet. Yeah.
I'd rather have a lean budget
Yeah.
and see what you're actually going to need and then only take out that rather than taking out more. And
Right.
so we got just to play with.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
All those in favor of approval of the Nolan contract? Any opposed? Okay. All righty. And then the other thing that we definitely need to discuss today is leadership Nacogdoches for Sheridan.
Yeah, I was approached by the chamber to join this upcoming class for Leadership Nacogdoches. It's a cost of just under $1,000, $970, I believe. So that wasn't anything that was built into the budget. I'm fine moving forward as the board suggests. We can wait another, that's a 2-year program, right? Every other year. So if I didn't do it now, it would be.
Better to get you in it now if you're going to do it. And just see more benefit.
And just for a historical perspective, I think one of the issues we've had, possibly with in past years, has been that there was a perception that the CVB and possibly administration of CVB or leadership, maybe the entire board wasn't involved enough in Nacogdoches events and with the city and chamber groups. And so I think from that aspect, it's something that could be important for us to participate in, for Sherry to participate in, and for us to support.
There is a continuing education budget, so I didn't kind of consider it.
I think it'll be very beneficial. I agree.
It's fantastic.
It would be different if you've been here for 100 years. This is good.
So we'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion for Sherry to.
And I'll second it.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, we'll, all those in favor of Sherry participating in Leadership Nacogdoches, say aye, and any opposed? Okay, we'll have Sherry in Leadership Nacogdoches. Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and depart at this time. Thank you. But, I'll be watching the videotape later. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Other items for discussion.
Do we have a quorum?
But we're not going to, we've made all the actions, so we're just.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the students' information, just.
We will be tabling any decision making, but we're looking at revitalization of our sports advisory panel. We've, of course, in the marketing plan, we've been charged with increasing our sports marketing. We've looked at sort of what we're doing naturally to draw people in, and that's disc golf. And Joanna has been in contact with the group that is doing that, and we've been in talks with Parks and Rec, Ryan Bray, about possibly increasing what they would need to build upon that, and to maybe bring in, I think there's interest in bringing in a women's only event, possibly branching out and providing some instruction at the youth level through Parks and Rec so that kids could get involved in it. But that seems to be something that we're already naturally doing well. So we're trying to go for that low-hanging fruit. We're doing that really well. How can we improve upon that? So a sports advisory panel, I feel like, would be important to help guide us and make sure that we're moving in a trajectory that that the board feels comfortable with doing.
They can also do a lot of legwork, putting things together.
And I'll tell you, I'm kind of on the sports and leisure committee, and I know very little about teams, shockingly little. But I have some friends that do. And so I put feelers out there to kind of the bigger thing, more obvious things like baseball tournaments, or baseball tournament and soccer tournament specifically. And, for those big items, the big things that everybody's seeing communities making money on, what I've been told is that we just need more facilities.
Yeah, right now we're lacking the infrastructure to really, but there's a plan. I mean,
There
I think,
are,
yeah, we'll get there eventually. The other thing that has sort of come our way is Lufkin has for a long time hosted the Piney Woods Purgatory Bike Run, and they disbanded this year. Joanna was able to secure the database of those riders, so now you've got those dedicated riders that are looking for a new place to ride. And then we last week heard that Beaumont and their Spindletop ride has disbanded as well. And that's twice the size of Purgatory. So we're in the works trying to get that as well. We talked about it at the SFA Chamber Connection meeting, and there were several interested parties in either pulling together, and that's what we want to do. We want to connect those people so they're doing all the work and we can just promote it. But either making some kind of triathlon event or making a larger, building upon our existing Stone Fort ride that Rotary does. So those are two things that I feel like if we had more of an organized, dedicated, prescribed effort in the early planning phases, that can kind of be our training ground for when we do have the infrastructure for softball, baseball, soccer.
Well, but and just that, I mean, again, I just kind of feel like I'm an out-of-the-loop person on what these types of events are. But that seems like great ideas. Because, the bike ride that we've been doing at Rotary has been far more successful than we anticipated.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of local interest, and you see all these groups training for triathlons and that here locally. So that seems to be something that's really popping right now.
Yes.
Damon, what is Kim McMorray's
Kyle,
daughter?
Becky. Becky and Kyle are very into that community.
Are both of them?
They both. Becky trains people, and they've both been doing
I thought her
over a year.
And Carolyn Garner.
Oh, yeah.
Please try.
Okay, well, we can make a decision at next month's meeting, but just know that we're working on securing the Spindletop riders and really looking at what we can do right now to put ourselves in a better position to accept all the business that we'll get when we get lights at the fields and make the improvements that we need and get the infrastructure to get those other target audiences that council and the community are looking for us to.
I'm excited about this other stuff. But we have roads.
Yeah.
Bike ride, right? Yeah.
And Jason Reese has, I've contacted him to see if he would just help me because sports marketing is not something that I have a lot of experience in, and he clearly does. And he's expressed that he will help us in any way.
See the guy at SFA that guy that's doing it.
Okay, and then we had a gentleman come in to the CVB, and he was interested in having us have an electric car charging station in one of our parking spaces at the CVB. It would, right now we have to look into the cost, so I need to get an electrician out because the cost of installing it is dependent upon its distance from the junction box, and God help me, I don't know where our junction box is, but my feeling is along the back side of the building, if we could take up a parking space. There's some paperwork with Brian Bray to fill out. He didn't seem to think it would be a problem if that is something that the board thinks would be an amenity for us. We would be the only one. It's an all-purpose charging station, so it could take all types of electric vehicles. We would be charged the electricity for charging the vehicles, and the installation would be something that we could market. And then the only other charging station is the Tesla station.
Where's the Tesla station?
It is out on the loop, right?
Yeah, it's by the
New Denny's.
Where?
The new Denny's.
The Denny's, that complex.
That's right.
We've got several of them out there.
But that's a dedicated Tesla station. So this would be one that would be able to charge.
Does it generate any revenue?
If you invest more money, you
Card
could do that.
One's not gonna.
Yeah, one is not going to generate that much revenue. The best part is the charging time is 2 hours. So somebody that has an electric vehicle, which they're, it's not like they're crawling the streets with them right now, but they could feasibly come in, plug in, and then they're stuck here for 2 hours because we have their car. So they're going to, eat at Dolly's. They're going to shop in our shops, and what we give up is a parking space and, the electricity to charge the vehicles, and that's going to be.
Would the space be dedicated only to vehicles that you charge?
Well, the charging station would be at the front of it, so we would probably need to mark it with some signage that said, reserved for.
Because right now you go back to the back, sometimes during the day it's filled up.
Yeah.
So
Every
you
one's space it would quite often be empty.
Pardon?
It would quite often be empty.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, we should explore the cost, I think. to see-
Well, that's what I was going to say. If you're interested in pursuing it, it gives us something else that nobody else. I've checked around. Nobody else is offering that as an amenity. I don't think it's going to be utilized as I think the perception of us being ahead of the curve and how progressive is Nacogdoches. I think that's going to fall more in our favor than the cost of charging vehicles that, we'll at least have it. And then if it doesn't work for us, you just take it away. But it's, I think it was like $2,000 for the actual unit, charging unit, and then the power. And of course, the installation would be the cost.
Could be, right.
Yeah. So if that's something that you want, I'll get in contact with an electrician, and the next meeting I can bring you actual firm pricing, and we can decide if
You
we.
don't mind that, it might be something to be interesting to look at.
Okay.
Why don't you see the possibility if we had to take two rather than just one? If you get prices back.
Right, yeah, if we got a break on it, and it cost us like 30% more to do two.
Yeah.
There'd still be
This
consideration.
is something we could put on our brochure, and for those people who have electric cars.
Mm-hmm.
So they have Teslas.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they have a Tesla.
But there's a big good photo op right there. There's those Teslas are stuck at Denny's for 2 hours instead of pretty
Yeah.
downtown.
If they're not on fire.
If they're not.
If they're not,
Okay. So moving into our reports, the executive director report. Joanne and I have had several conversations. We seem to just naturally attract all these car shows. So we're really looking to discuss, and again, this can wait until we've got the full board, but what can we do to enhance that? What are some services? What are some offerings that we can give to really solidify and make that a niche, just really solidify and reinforce what seems to be naturally coming our way. Because it seems to be really popular with the car clubs that are bringing their groups here, but also with the community. The community really seems to embrace it as well. So it's a win-win.
Do you think it would be good to have a hybrid group on that?
It's a good idea.
Because I know James Stanley is big into that, and I don't know who else.
There used to be a very active club here, but it has just kind of fallen apart. There are still a lot of anti-car lovers here.
Oh, really?
Ray Mitchell is
Yeah, Buddy Hines
in the Jeep.
Pardon?
Ray Mitchell.
No, it's Jeeps, yeah.
He does Jeeps. He was in charge of the car show for Blueberry.
Well, he's also one that takes care of the bikes.
I know, we had some chatting right
Well, good, we got a double on that.
And we're on the payroll.
What was it that you said, Dr. Jeff?
James Stanley, he used to be the dean of White Arkansas Sciences, now retired, but he restores cars himself. He just doesn't
Maybe we can pull together a group of people that actually,
They're car enthusiasts.
yeah, they're car enthusiasts, and they, maybe they can point us to maybe some trade magazines that we can advertise in and maybe get some editorial in.
All over the place.
And he's been doing it for 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, 40 years.
If we could get a list of the people that brought cars to the car show at Blueberry,
Probably.
because they're going to be part of that group.
Chamber should have.
Well, and not just the Blueberry, I mean, we've got all the groups that already came.
Right.
Like the Dune Buggy folks, they want to come back and be in the Christmas parade. But one of the guys also owns a car that was on the Texas tour. I mean, there's all this crossover. So that might be that list as well. See what we can do.
And I like the Jeep group, and I like James. I know because he's a friend of mine as well. He knows everybody on that. He knows everybody on that circuit because he buys parts and sells parts, and he's a very serious hobbyist and has been for a while. And he's just a people person, so he's really dialed into it.
We were members of the Anti-Auto Club when it was, and here our family was. And I do know some of the members who still have those cars. I can give you some names.
that'd be great.
But
I think we could get together the people that know the culture, then.
Well, they've been successful, so let's see if we can expand it.
Yeah.
It's not like we're trying to reinvent it.
No. Okay. About that. Today at 1:30, we're going to meet with our B&B, Airbnb, short-term rentals, and unique lodging operators. Joanna has set up those meetings for the rest of the fiscal year as well. There have been some rumblings among the B&B owners. They're not satisfied with the services that they've been receiving from us. They don't feel like they're being represented and presented to groups that come in as much as we are representing the hotels. There's been a disconnect, I think, in the transition to Simple View. They very much, I say they, but the representative from the group that called me expressed, that for her property, she preferred when our staff would call her twice a week and ask how many rooms are available, how many, what does next week look like for you? Do you have anything big? Instead of doing what we would prefer, going to their extranet site on SimpleView and enter that data on their own. So I think there's been maybe a lag in education of part of our servicing is the SimpleView product, and that relies on you
On
doing
their
your
organizations.
yeah. But we're happy.
They could give us a report once a week too, couldn't they?
They could, but they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
What was said to me is, if they're paying hot tax, then that's what they're paying us to do, is to make those phone calls and get that data.
No, they're paying us to make the other phone calls that bring them business. Like the phone call that tells us that they want businesses on there, in my opinion.
But we're going to have that conversation.
Right.
We presented it to them that this was their meeting, and we asked them to present items for discussion for the agenda, and nobody submitted anything to be discussed today. So we will have a meeting and discuss about future meetings.
And they able to benefit with very little contribution.
Well, I don't know. I can't speak to that. I haven't really met them. I've spoken to the ones that have taken the time.
Sure.
And they might be working on an old paradigm.
Yeah.
When there was less activity here, and there was somebody that was calling saying, "Hey, what do you have going on?"
And we're happy to do that when we have an intern to do that. But
Right.
We've shared that.
Do it.
And we've shared that. It's really manpower.
Yeah, it's it's a changing paradigm. What do you want us to spend our time doing? Holding your hand or holding somebody else's hand, bringing them to your property? And I would say the second would benefit us all much better.
And I think among a certain segment of it, they're disgruntled over the disparity in the payment of hotel occupancy tax between Airbnbs and B&Bs, and they just don't know that is an issue that's being worked on. So a lot of it is communication, and I think it's one of those things that if you've got a splinter under, they're just sensitive right now, so everything seems like a huge deal. And if they call and somebody doesn't recognize their name and associate it to their property, then it's everything is just exaggerated and magnified. But I feel like if we start having these meetings on a regular basis and help bridge them and scaffold them into the services that we can offer, there's some of them that are in the outlying counties. We charge them $250 to be a part of our marketing, have placement in our brochures and literature and on our website. Some of them don't see the value in that. I plan on telling them that nobody is here to force them to pay that, and they are happy to keep their $250 and try and find some marketing on their own, but the next time we print, their properties will be removed, and they'll immediately be removed for our website. And if any time they want to come back, it's $250 buy-in, and the next time we reprint, we'll add your property back into the brochures, and we can immediately put you like that. I don't want it to be punitive.
Right.
I want them to really experience the value that they're getting for $250 a year investment to being exposed to. I think in May alone, our unique website hits alone were 10,000. So I don't know that they're going to be able to reach an audience of 10,000 in a month on their own.
And those people aren't paying contacts to us. That's why they're paying
That's why they are. It's
So-
only the people in the county that are outside the city limits get their deal.
Everything outside of the city limits, if they want to be in our brochures, have to pay $250.
A year.
Well, that's fair.
And it's been $250 for real.
But just to keep,
I was gonna say, it seems a little low to me. $20 a month for 10,000 hits. I can't get that anyway.
And did you say you currently are having meetings regularly?
we had one meeting before, when was that meeting, Joanna?
In February?
Yeah, in February, and then this is the second one. But we're going to start meeting. They know the dates now, so hopefully they can put it in their calendars, and they'll either show up or they won't. But at least they'll have an opportunity, and that's what we're here to give. And the fact of the matter is, short-term rentals aren't going anywhere. I just read a report this morning when I came in. Last year, Airbnb paid the state of Texas in hotel occupancy tax $15.96 million. They had only projected to pay $8 million. So that is just an industry.
Right.
It's not going to go anywhere. So, and they, as well as B&Bs, are a really integral part of the tourist landscape that we have in Nacogdoches. So we all need to find some common ground and realize that people travel differently. Some people want hotels, some people want chain hotels so they can get their points, some people want boutique hotels for the experience, some people want B&Bs for that experience. The more options we can provide people, the more attractive we as a community look like. So we might not always be able to be the property that gets the big event, but if that event is in our town, then you might get that anniversary weekend 6 years down, they might come back in other ways.
And two, I want to go to the car show, but I want to have a more unique experience. And so I, stay at a really beautiful store property here.
So I'm encouraged by the meeting. I think, they'll be able to understand that if they have felt dismissed, that wasn't intentional on anybody's part. We're operating a staff of, 4.5 for Cheryl, part-time. We're a small staff. We're trying to do the best we can and maximize our efforts on those that are going to show us a return. So hopefully we can open up the communication and settle that sort of discord that they're feeling, because I don't want anybody to feel like we're not working for them.
And kind of express what we all kind of echoed here, but in a nice way, which is that, it's not that we're trying to take things away from you that you previously had. It's that we're trying to add things that we never thought were possible.
Yeah.
The things that serve, now that this age that we're living in, these things that we can do that can generate business for them, for our hotels, for our local businesses. We have so many more opportunities, but we have the same number of people to chase those opportunities. And so it's not that we're taking them any less seriously, or anybody who's paying hot tax less seriously. It's just simply that we all of a sudden have these opportunities to help them. And so we're putting so much energy towards that. that it may make it feel like there's a less personal touch, but there's no less concern for their well-being as a business or entity.
That was very well put. I will certainly communicate that.
You know,
Or that.
Gary Johnson has agreed to do our final audit for 2017. So we're still a year behind. So he is in the process now. He's collected the documents. The last piece of that is getting the banking information on the CDs. And he will be filing our tax return as well as performing what he says is the absolute last audit that he will ever do for us, which is fine because Mr. Jeffers has, we think that we'll be moving under the city structure, and so our future audits will be taken care of differently, but that is in the process. And I'm very thankful to Mr. Jeffers for negotiating Mr. Johnson to do that. And that's at a cost of $8,500, which is still a bargain. Roy Blake we're still completing our insurance inventory. The inventory is all done. There are some items that he's requesting be valued, and those are the items that we haven't. It's the must, like, how do you put a price on? They're the things that they've never had prices for. So by the end of the week, I have to get him that information. And at that point, we'll either decide to let that policy run out and let TML coverage. We'll need the inventory for either way that we go. And I told you about the AT&T fiber. We had some plumbing issues in the building upstairs. We're working on, that's been fixed. There's some staining over the front desk area, some tiles, so we're going to get those replaced. The AC in the building, sound like a whiner, but my office doesn't have, it has AC, but my air doesn't come down. So the temperature is the way that the AC was done in the building. The guys came out and they put the thermometer up there and they said, no, it's blowing 63, but you're right, it's hot in here. So by 3:30, my office is pretty uninhabitable. And they said, well, what you can do is close your blinds, turn out the light, and close your door. Which nothing says welcome to Nacogdoches more than me through slats. Yes.
In the dark office.
In the dark office. So in the winter, it's okay because you can get a portable heater, and that solves the problem. In the summer, it's been a little more challenging. To me, the obvious solution would be a portable AC unit, which are around $400. Right now, I've got some fans going, so I'm also going to look into maybe some of these storerooms. Maybe I can clear out some space, and when it gets really hot, I can come down to the basement and work some. It would.
It's the venting, the extension.
That's like a duct problem.
Yeah, it's a big duct problem, and I'm thinking that is just more money than I care to. I'll sweat. That was just more.
Would a ceiling fan help pull that down?
I was wondering, since we're
What they do?
Yeah, I don't know.
High ceilings, that's what they do.
We'll figure it out. But if after 3:30 I'm not sitting in my office, I'm somewhere, but I'm still working. But we are working on that. We got prices to replace our 9 flags in our front lobby, and we're also looking at doing miniature flags to sell. And if I'm going to present this to you, but the base alone for a piece of wood with 9 holes in it to hold the little sticks is $21. $21. I don't know where they got. I don't know where this wood came from. I don't know why it's so special, but that's like I've searched every source I can find. So if anybody does the high school still have a wood shop? I just think that would be an easy. Heck, I could probably noodle it out. I don't trust myself with drills, but
It's a place downtown that sells a lot of that wooden stuff.
it's the 9 that gets us. You could get a 10, but they're still upwards of $20, and that's not the flags.
So how big is it?
It's
You talking about real small?
about like 8, and then it's got 9 holes, and then you put your 9 little 4x6 flags. So our other choice is 3 set of 3 plastic holders, or just say, here's your flags. Here's your tiny legs.
We're not going to see you.
I guess we could,
He mentioned that.
we could, yeah. I was just trying to think of a more sustainable kind of way. Anyway, we're working on noodling that one out. We've got a graduate intern that's starting tomorrow to help Joanna with the Simple View data. She's doing it for course credit, and she's also going to be going through the Simple View Brainery program so that she'll leave with that accreditation. Her name is Stephanie as well, so we call her intern Stephanie. Stephanie Fontenot is real Stephanie.
How far into Simple View are we? Are we there? Have we started using it yet? Have we started inputting yet?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is it easier? Sorry.
There's a few things that are in the works, to get, just some of the types of events that we have, but Sherry's in the midst of getting that all.
Yeah, the raw data has all been input. Right now what we're working on is tagging the data so that we can make sure that Public Queens is tagged as, annual, everything that it could be tagged so that we can search and pull things.
Because that seemed like the piece that we were most concerned about when we were doing this was that not whether or not it would provide results, it's just whether or not we had the person hours to get the input, get the information in there.
It's in there. It's just now, we did have some folks put it in. Now what we want to make sure, especially for this priority, which is just a way of doing it right, that everything's in there correctly. Because when we had our one-on-one, when they came and taught us, we learned some things, aha moments that we know weren't necessarily done in the moment, but it was just an additional know-how. So this is for the graduate student will be able to help us.
Oh, good.
And that's her sole, she's doing those two things. So she's working with the data and she's going through the program with Simple View. And that's it. She's not answering phones. She's not covering the desk. So our hope is by the end of summer, we should be at a point where we can then take it from our end and move forward.
But she'll be with me, so that'll be able to help me. She's just a young brain. Gets it.
Did you say she's a grad student?
She is in the hospitality program. Y'all may have seen on social media or read, the governor's office reached out to me. There was a travel journalist, Carlos Valerio from National Geographic Latin America. His visit was very, very successful here. This was when the governor's office with Texas Parks and Wildlife contracted with him to tour Caddo Lakes and the surrounding area there. He did his own research and found Nacogdoches, and it wasn't in his travel allowance to come to us. And so he had his handler through the governor's office reach out to me week before last to see if we would be interested in hosting. And the Fredonia was gracious enough to come up with accommodations for him. So it wound up costing us, I think, we bought his ticket and Kelly Daniels' ticket to Taste of Nacogdoches. And then we bought his and Mayor Pro Tem Bolden's breakfast that next day, and then Mike took him to lunch on Friday. So for the cost of those meals, we got, and he fell in love with us. He was supposed to leave first thing Saturday morning to go to the Woodlands. Mike was supposed to drop him off to the Fredonia like at 2 o'clock so they could do a back of the house tour. He didn't wind up dropping him off until 5. And Carlos shared with Mike that, he was supposed to go to the Woodlands. And he's like, oh, well, before you go, you should really stop at the farmer's market and check out this, and this. And when Mike came in to check on the volunteers on Saturday, he said he looked across and Carlos was taking pictures of downtown. He never had left to go to the Woodlands. So he genuinely enjoyed his time here. The university did a fantastic job of touring him around. He really felt like a VIP, and he really, I think, got a good sense of the strong sense of the community here and the partnership. And he really did fall genuinely in love. So looking forward to seeing what comes of that. I think hopefully it's going to be some good press for the university, for the city, for us, for everybody.
Is it going to be in National Geographic? Or?
Yes.
Okay, so not like National Geographic.
Is it Latin American?
Well, it's National Geographic.
So
It's Latin
American.
Yeah, it's because whenever we have to go to Mexico, and can I read it?
It's they've got 2 publications outside of just the yellow National Geographic Journeys and National Geographic Traveler, sort of like AAA has they're different. And so his is National Geographic Traveler, but he writes for both. He's contracted just through Nat Geo.
One of his last requests when he was in on Friday, though, he asked, he goes, can you bring me to the dollar store? And he goes, my mom likes postcards. Well, what he was meaning was birthday cards. But he says his mom loves dollar stores in the United States. So we had to bring him over there so he could have a little, crazy vibe.
Well, we have plenty of those.
Oh, yeah.
You
did. Not a shortage.
That's what I was used to.
Got dollar stores and donuts.
Well, yeah, there you go. Every time. One over every corner.
But if you see Mike, I mean, obviously there was no better choice than Mike. He's such a gracious host. But if you see Mike,
Well, Kelly was pretty enthralled too when I talked to her. She seemed to be real excited that he was here too.
He came to the orientation as well, over at the Banana Creek.
Oh, wow, he was all.
He was everywhere.
he was everywhere. And the other communities, they showed him a good time. But in Kilgore, the Rangerettes did a kick line for him, and he went to the coffee shop, and they named a coffee after him. And then they were like, "Thank you, goodbye." And then he went on. And here we were like, "No, come in for Taste of Nacogdoches, and you can stay for 2 days." And we invited them into our home.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he took away is that I talked to Jim Stone with Texas Parks and Wildlife magazine. That feature article on Nacogdoches will be in the August-September issue moving forward, so I'll make sure that we get copies of that. And then it is not a done deal, but Nedco tells us that there is a new hotel prospect south of Super 8 on South Street. It is a national brand. We're not releasing the name of that until they actually pull permits and are more committed into the process. But that's good for us. We're getting another national brand in here. And there was some property that was, I think, apartments were looking to build down there, and they didn't. So it's a parcel of land that was needing to be used, and it's going to be used, and it'll benefit us. Okay, marketing, Stephanie.
Mainly, I'd just like to say that I'm excited to be back. I have a new appreciation for time at home and time away from home because it's not very easy to get a lot done with a new board, but I can get all kinds of things done at work. So I'm excited to be back. I'm ready to hit the ground running and be really productive. So I'm excited. The biggest thing that I'm looking at is our marketing plan for the next year because we need to get that together and we need to get it approved by the city and we need to get our plan going. So that is my largest goal is to take a look at all of our the big things that we want to do, especially now that we know that we have Hancock on board again next year, and now that we have an idea of one of the campaigns that we're going to do. So that's my largest goal. Other than that, I'm taking a look at everything approaching the next fiscal year. As Sherry mentioned, I would like to look at the year as a whole and just get a whole plan going, as far as not really being reactive along the way. I want to have a good, solid plan, good, solid campaigns, and just build upon those as we go to make them better. So I'm excited to do that. And that includes everything from social media to the marketing plan as a whole, everything in between. One thing that I was able to do when I was at home working was to continue updating the Barn Quilt Trail online. And we now have over 100 quilts registered, which is really exciting. So I'm going to continue pushing that out, and I hope we get some more play on that, people coming in just for that specific reason. But that's the majority of what I'm doing. Okay.
Joanna?
All right. I have a report, you guys, that's you should have in your packet, and it just shows what we have definite coming up. I go out a little bit, as you've noticed, and that's simply because it reminds me of who's coming. So just up through our August, it's not actually in order because we have the Girlfriend Weekend in there, but up through the 300 Years of Plants, the move in Texas kind of gives you an idea of where we are as far as our economic impact. Of course, a large part of that is from the Texas Blueberry Festival. And the numbers, I've got the Texas Blueberry Festival behind there because I wrote that out just so you guys could see it. And this isn't really the actual total. This is the total that it contains to those that spent the night and those that spent the night in hotels. There's a large number of folks that stayed in the B&Bs as well as RVs, and so those aren't part of the direct sales, but it does show the number of people that spent the night, and I believe we had over 900 nights, and that's very conservative, because what I'm doing there is I'm counting the rooms singularly with one person in it. Does that make sense? So if y'all would just look over those numbers.
How did this golfing go?
The disc golfing went great. So Steve Geigerman, who is now the president of the group, Nacogdoches Grudgers, we are going to actually be meeting with that group at the next meeting, because right now they have a group out of Dallas that manages it, and that's a lot of data entry. He wants to look at taking that back, because he's got some smart people on his group that they might be able to do that. They pay them about $2,500. So they want to take that money and look at maybe doing that as the prize, putting that in the prize purse. And what Sherry had mentioned earlier, this woman's group is actually a professional. And so by doing so, he wants to just duplicate this tournament that's been very successful. It's the only tournament on disc golf, in the United States that sells out a month, 2 months in advance. Yeah, it really does. And I know it's in June. Yeah. And disc golf. But they're going to try to move it back to April so it's not so hot. So we're looking at an April and a fall tournament. And so he knows how we want to get involved and how much we want to support it. Meaning that we want to get into their collateral materials, like Stephanie said, getting in front of the ball, and then also using that as an opportunity to have host hotel and their little skin in the game. And that's what we're looking at as far as, get all the players in early enough. So we do have a secure block. But they do like to stay together.
Yeah.
Just kind of fun. So even if we have two of them, maybe they can host something at the hotel. We can do packets there, make it like you would anywhere else. They have a town. Yeah. So,
Kind of step up the game a little bit.
absolutely. Some of the other fun things I've got happening. One of the things Sherry had mentioned is, in addition to showing you guys what we have and who we have on the book, is to show lost business. I'm obviously going to be able to report that more, especially if we move forward with Nolan, because I'll have access to the leads that I'm generating and, the process throughout. But the Hotel Fredonia, or Fredonia Hotel, is actually a resource for us right now to see even who they've had come and possibly lost business out from. And the purpose of that, again, is that the city, I believe, will know, or in the board, will know possibly as a community where we're falling short. And is there a possibility of improvement? Where are those soft spots that we know we can resolve? So that's kind of the advantage of having a lost business report. The orientation program, I think you guys received a couple of emails. You did, because it kept bouncing. But the orientation dates that we have for June as well as July, the CBB has become in charge of the parent social. And the social is on a Thursday night. It's at Banana Creek. Some interesting dynamics there, but we had such a good time at this last one for the parents that came. I have a call into orientation to see if we can make it a little bit more known to the parents to come out there. But the ones that came were hilarious. They had some specials for us and some really unique games for us. It was a blast. We had a great time. It was good, and Carlos was there, and so was Kelly. So the Sip and Stroll is if you guys are all aware of what the Sip and Stroll is, it's our walking tour. We're starting over at the Red House Winery. We're making our way over here. Then we're going to land over at the brewery and do the trivia, and then end up at Nine Flags. And we're partnering with the Fredonia, so folks will finish up there. We listen to some music. That's also the night for jazz, and then they'll end up taking the elevator up home for the evening. So far, I understand they've had 3 overnights, and we've sold out the event. So we have about 20 people walking and sweating it out. And Sherry's ordered some really cool parasols for us to walk over. And normally, I haven't looked at all of the news, but on all of our past wine whiskey brews, we usually have 51% that were from out of town. So I'll check on this one. This happened this week where we sold out, so I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, this is our reinvented wine, whiskey, and brew,
Yeah.
and the Fredonia stepped in as sponsor.
Yeah. So the bike rental program, we had a really nice partnership and conversation with the bike shop. You guys may have seen, we made the front page on that. It's just a nice tourism draw where folks can come in and out of the city and rent bikes. A new experience and a new way to see Nacogdoches. You can rent a bike out for a day, a few hours, a month. It doesn't matter, but your comfort bikes, meaning they probably have pretty big seats and wide tires, so anybody of any shape or size can attempt to ride. But that's something really cool that we worked on and are happy to be a part of. We have a new fall day for the Vintage Market Days. They've moved it back to get it off of the other, what's the other?
Junior Forum.
Yeah, the Junior Forum thing. So that'll be October 26th through 28th out of the expo. Also I have a meeting set up with Anita at the expo. We have our annual 10 weekend events with the Texas High School and Middle School rodeo, Region 5. So we'll have that on the books and help them. We currently have a arrangement with the Best Western out at North Park that helps them in the family stay. A lot of them do stay on the property, but we do have a percentage that stay out at Best Western. And then I just want to mention the writing project that me and Wanda are going to be working on. She is going to take the meeting planner that we currently have and make it more of a narrative, which is reflective of the storytelling aspect of Nacogdoches. And this will be something that's going to be on our website, as well as something that will be printed and available for our meeting planners. And just so I want them to feel what we know is happening here in Nacogdoches. So it's not just a meeting place to find your hotel and, put something fun to do. It really gives the feel and a flavor for who we are as a community. So I'm really stoked about that. So that's about it.
All right. Then you can see Mike's report in there, 948 walk-in visitors, and the groups that he hosted, some of the interesting places that our walk-in visitors were from. And I forgot to mention it just came in yesterday, so I didn't have time to break it apart. I try and blow it up because I know it's teen-icey, but this is how our star report comes in to me. So for the month of May, we were up 4% over this time last year. I think the more important is to look at that running 12 months. You can see in 2017, we were at a negative 7.2, and for 2018, we're at a positive 9.2. So cumulatively, we are well ahead of the mark. And our RevPAR, which is revenue per available room, it was down for May, a negative 1.4 over this time last year. But again, in the running 12 months, it went from a negative 7.4 to a positive 7.3. So again, exponential growth there. And then the last thing before we adjourn is, I forgot to put it in my report, but my Certified Tourism Executive Project with Charlie was approved and passed through. So I am now officially a Certified Tourism Executive. Part of that is they present those awards at Travel and Tourism College, which takes place next week at Hyatt Las Pines. That wasn't in the budget for me to go. So a representative from TTIA is going to come to a city council meeting at a date to be determined and present me with that accreditation. Had a talk with Mr. Jeffers. He thought that would be a good press moment just to further help sort of heal the perception of the CVB in the community. And so as soon as we know those dates, we'll let you know so that y'all can come and Kiki Friedman tonight. Super. If anybody wants to come to the B&B meeting, come sit by me.
That sounds like fun.
I know. I've really built it up. It's going to be good. Good things will come from it. So, accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you so much.